Hello, sixth grade math students. This is Mr. Stanton coming to you. We're going to record a couple videos for you guys in Unit 7. So you'll have a couple from me and you'll have a couple from Miss Shaw. So in Unit 7, we're touching on various topics from geometry. So super broad, nothing too crazy, but just to introduce you guys to a few things before you move on to 7th grade. So in Unit 7.1, we are talking about classifying quadrilaterals. So a couple definitions for you first. A polygon is a closed two-dimensional figure with straight sides. So we'll be looking a polygon is a figure with more than two sides, obviously, because you need three sides to close up a shape. And then a quadrilateral is a type of polygon. A quadrilateral is a four-sided polygon. And that's what we're going to focus on in 7.1, is classifying four-sided polygons. So if you look at these notes, there's a table on here that's got different types of quadrilaterals and some properties that go with them. So our first type is parallelogram. It says a parallelogram has opposite sides are equal and parallel opposite angles are equal. So parallel means that two lines are never going to intersect. So you may have heard of that before. So when we say that the opposite sides of a parallelogram are parallel, we're saying that this top one and the bottom one are parallel because they're opposite each other. And we're saying this one on the left and the one on the right are parallel. Two sets of parallel lines, never going to touch each other. The next one is a rhombus. Again, a rhombus is another type of quadrilateral. Remember, quadrilateral means four sides, so these are all quadrilaterals. For a rhombus, the opposite sides are parallel and all the sides are equal. So you'll see throughout the unit that we'll label sides as being the same by giving them the same amount of tick marks. So you'll see little tick marks on them. Since all of these sides have one tick mark, that would mean they're all equal. And then also opposite sides are parallel. Our next example is a rectangle. It says opposite sides are parallel and equal. And it says each angle is a right angle. So if you notice, a rectangle shares some things with a rhombus and a parallelogram. They have opposite sides that are parallel. What makes a rectangle special is that the opposite sides are equal. So we're saying this side and this side are equal. And we're saying the one on the left and the one on the right are equal. Also, each angle is a right angle. Okay, a right angle is 90 degrees. We'll talk about that more later in the unit. Our next example is a square. And then what separates a square from a rectangle is that a square has all sides equal. So for a rectangle, the opposite sides are equal. For a square, all the sides are equal. And each angle is 90 degrees. The next one is a kite. And for a kite, it says exactly two pairs of consecutive sides are equal. So two pairs of consecutive sides. So for square, rectangle, rhombus, parallelogram, we kept talking about opposite sides. For a kite, we're talking about consecutive sides. So consecutive means right next to each other. Those two sides are equal, and then these two sides are equal. So all four are not equal, but you have two sets, or you have two pairs that are equal. And then the last one is a trapezoid. For a trapezoid, it says only one pair of opposite sides are parallel. Remember we said parallel means that they're never going to intersect. So the way that we draw or show that sides are parallel is we draw, they almost look like little arrowheads. So that says that this top line and the bottom line are parallel. If you look, the sides are not parallel. If we kept going, eventually they would intersect. So for a trapezoid, you only have one pair of opposite sides being parallel. But again, all of these are quadrilaterals. All of them have four sides. Now on the next page of notes, it says the chart below uses some notation you should learn. I already touched on this a little bit, but it says the arrows indicate parallel lines. Parallel lines will never intersect. So if you look at the trapezoid and the parallelogram, you've got parallel lines on there. The hash marks or the tick marks on the sides indicate they're the same length or they're congruent. So if you look at your trapezoid, we said it has one pair of parallel sides. We have one set of arrows. A parallelogram has both pairs of opposite sides being parallel. So what we're saying for the parallelogram is The left and the right are parallel, and the top and the bottom are parallel. Rhombus, all sides are the same, so you see you've got those tick marks. Rectangle and square have right angles. So if you look at the bottom of this, it says, give each quadrilateral as many names as you can. So meaning we can have more than one name. Now for all of these, the first thing we can do is we can go ahead and say that they're all quadrilaterals, and I'm just going to abbreviate that with quad. They are all four-sided polygons, so all of them can be called quadrilaterals. Every single one's a quadrilateral. Now if you look at our first one, we have a set of parallel lines. The left and the right are parallel, but the top and the bottom are not parallel. They would eventually intersect, because if you drew these out, eventually they're going to cross over. So the first one, the only other thing we can call it is a trapezoid. Can't be any of the other ones because of the sets of parallels. If you look at the next one, the top and the bottom are parallel. Pretend these are arrowheads that look good. But again, we only have one set of parallel lines. If we kept this line going and this line going, they'd eventually cross. So the only other name we can call this one is a trapezoid. For the next one, we've got parallel lines on the top and the bottom. The left and the right are also parallel. We also have 90-degree angles in each corner. So we have 4 right angles. Okay. So we can call this one a rectangle. Now we cannot call it a square because all of those sides aren't the same length. We could also call this a parallelogram because they have 2 sets of opposite sides that are parallel, but a rectangle would be the most specific one to call it. All right, if you look at this one, we've got 4 sides that are all the same length. And we've also got some parallel lines here. So this one and this one are parallel. And then we've got another set of parallel lines. So we've got both pairs of opposite sides being parallel. We've got all sides are the same, but we do not have 90-degree angles. So this is going to be a rhombus. Again, we could also call it a parallelogram, but rhombus would be the most specific name to call it. And looking at this last one, we've got the top and the bottom being parallel. The left and the right are parallel to each other. We've got right angles, and they are not all the same length. So that's going to be a rectangle. Again, rectangle would be our most specific. We could also call it a parallelogram. On the last page, it says to classify each of the following quadrilaterals. So it's telling us that they're all quadrilaterals, meaning they all have 4 sides. Some of them may have more than one name that we can call them, but we're going to call them the most specific one. So if you look at this first one, got 4 right angles, which automatically tells me it's either a rectangle or a square. These are congruent, and then these are congruent. Also, these are parallel, and then these are parallel. So I've got 4 right angles. I've got 2 sets of congruent sides. They're not all 4 congruent, but I have 2 sets, and I have 2 sets of parallel lines. So this is going to be a rectangle. It could also be a parallelogram. It is a quadrilateral, but rectangle is the most specific. If you look at number 2, I've got the top and the bottom being parallel to each other, but my sides would eventually intersect. So this is going to be a trapezoid. For number 3, the top and the bottom are parallel. The left and the right are parallel. Now, I can't tell from the drawing whether all four sides are congruent. If all four are congruent, we'd call it a rhombus. But from what we see, all we can for sure say is that it's a parallelogram. Two sets of opposite sides that are parallel. All right, if you look at number 4, we don't have any parallel lines. Everything's going to intersect, but if you look, these two are congruent, and then these two are congruent. So that's going to be a kite. All right, for number 5, we've got right angles, which tells us it's either a rectangle or a square. I'm going to go ahead and say that these are all 4 congruent, which means it's going to be a square. We have all 4 sides congruent, and we have right angles. We call that a square. For number 6, I again have 4 sides that are all the same, but if you look, I don't have right angles, so this is going to be a rhombus. Again, for a lot of these, there's more than one it could be, but we're putting the most specific. All right, if you look at the bottom of these notes, there's 6 more shapes down here. I want you guys to go ahead and classify those. Make sure you show them to your teacher before you move on.